Este o plăcere foarte mare pentru mine să revin acasă. Eu mă simt așa. I've never seen something as momentous as that when the people of the country had the courage to both resist those opponents of democracy. Has been something that has made Moldova famous, literally, around the world. Now I say Moldova, Moldova, brave people, literally. Freedom is worth fighting for. We see that in Ukraine. We don't think there is right now any imminent threat to Moldova. I want to make that clear. You know, the United States will continue to support the Moldovan government and people's choice for clean government. See much deeper relationships with Europe, as well as, of course, with the United States. I see our assistance multiplied 10 times.
Was there anything you were missing from Moldova? What will you miss?
Well, the food. The food.
Which one? You may say in Romanian.
No, Mama Liga. Sigur. I mean, everything about just life here. Aș dori să rămân aici mult mai timp, dar nu este posibil.
Dar veți reveni.
Desigur.
Mr. Hogan, thank you very much for coming back to Moldova and welcome with the new initiative and the new job to do.
În primul rând, bună ziua, doamnă, și este o plăcere foarte mare pentru mine să revin acasă. Eu mă simt așa și a fost o onoare foarte mare pentru mine să particip la Dialogul Strategic între Statele Unite și Republica Moldova. Am avut o întâlnire foarte productivă, foarte bună cu președinte Sandu și după întâlnirea noastră am de avut o întâlnire cu ministrul afacerilor externe și aș dori să rămân aici mult mai timp, dar nu este posibil.
Dar veți reveni.
Desigur. So speaking about this important meeting here, the strategic dialogue between the United States and Moldova could not be more timely. Our last dialogue was in April of 2022, and the war in Ukraine had just only had 2 months, and we had a time at that time to begin to make sure that Moldova was being in a very vulnerable position, that we were providing all the support that we could. A year later, at this dialogue, we have the opportunity to discuss what Moldova has done so well, which is to remain resilient, which is to stand up for the rules-based international order. Because that's one thing that is so important about this war that we cannot lose sight of. And we had an opportunity to thank Moldova for the incredible generosity of the Moldovan people in providing humanitarian support to the Ukrainians. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of thousands have crossed these borders, and nearly 100,000 actually remain in Moldova, and that's thanks to the generosity of the Moldovan government. Equally important, the generosity of the Moldovan people. So we spend a lot of time talking about that, spending a lot of time talking about the economic and commercial and business business ties that we have between our two countries, what we can do to give even more impulse to that. And then, of course, in the area of energy security, something that we've always had a very sharp focus on. This war has brought even more to our attention the need to be able to give Moldova all the tools it needs to diversify away from a single supplier. And so with the additional assistance, just in this last year of already $320 million in providing economic support to Moldova, an additional $300 million that we look forward to dispersing with the support of Congress for energy support. So beginning to plan how we use that money to be able to provide direct budget support in this area, to be able to increase the connectivity with the European Union, specifically with Romania, and so forth.
It's a very good plan. Energy security and poverty, yes, are big challenges now for Moldova, but one of the main problems now is also security because of the war in the region. And Moldova named itself a kind of country with neutrality, but also having a foreign army, a Russian army on its territory forever. How can you see cooperation on this field?
We were in consultations with the Moldovan government even before the invasion, because we wanted to make sure they knew what we knew, right? To be prepared. And then when the invasion took place, and there was some initial concern about it would actually sweep into Moldova, but particularly, going through Odessa and the number of refugees and so forth, we stood with Moldova in terms of providing the support to be able to take on that large number of Ukrainians fleeing their home. We've also ramped up our coordination and our assistance in the security arena as well. We've been very pleased to see Moldova take the extraordinary step of nearly doubling its defense budget. And so that is something that we will continue to encourage, that sort of focus on the defense of the country is going to remain part of our dialogue with the Moldovan government. And so we've got a number of initiatives working through the NATO context, the partnership agreement there, some defense capacity building. We've been part of that process, as well as bilateral. In fact, a leading member of our delegation here is going to be signing a bilateral agreement with the Moldovan Ministry of Defense, particularly in this area. So we are seeing that as the Moldovan government moves forward and really taking a hard look at its own defense posture, both external but as well as internal, right? I mean, we can talk about Ministry of Defense, but we can also talk about the Ministry of Interior and the work that they have. Our support for there has also been unwavering. So I would not say that neutrality has in any way impeded the work that we're doing together.
No, it was impeded by the presence of a Russian army on its territory forever.
Yes, exactly. And that's something, as you know, we have been calling for the removal of the withdrawal of those forces that are not welcomed here by the Moldovan government. And so, of course, there's a political process that we've been part of to try to settle that. But honestly, this is a time where I think the Moldovan people can see that when a country takes action against the will of another country, action that has brought thousands and thousands of death and the atrocities. I mean, we just recently designated crimes against humanity, against what the Russians are doing in Ukraine. It's really hard to sit on the fence on this. I mean, this is something that has really galvanized the entire international community.
You've been here as an ambassador. If you would talk to simple people in Moldovan villages, as you've met them some years ago, what would be your message and your explanations to them? Why one of the biggest powers in the world comes to a smallest country to help it?
I would say that the United States has consistently been for Moldova a champion of Moldova's own democratic, economic, and social freedom, right? To be able to chart your own path. And in 2014, the Moldovan people, an action taken by the Moldovan government at that time, chose a Euro-Atlantic path when it signed the Deep and Comprehensive Free Trade Agreement and the Association Agreement. And there have been many attempts, both from within the country as well as from without, to try to take Moldova off that path. And when I was here in the 2018 to 2021 period, I had the opportunity to witness incredible, historic change in the country. In my 26 years of diplomacy, serving in more than 7 countries, I've never seen something as momentous as that, when the people of the country had the courage to both resist those opponents of democracy, sovereignty, territorial integrity, both internal as well as external, and to make that choice to elect a government that was committed to these ideals has been something that has made Moldova famous, literally, around the world. Before I went to Moldova, people would say, "Oh, you're going to Moldova. Remind me where that is again." Now I say Moldova. Moldova, brave people. Brave people, literally. And I have traveled quite a bit in my current job, and so I can say that with all sincerity. Freedom is worth fighting for. We see that in Ukraine. We don't think there is right now any imminent threat to Moldova. I want to make that clear. But Moldova has chosen a path. Moldova was given EU candidate status last year, and is moving very quickly to try to join this incredible organization that will bring even more benefits to the Moldovan people, direct, concrete benefits.
Now we have a new government, new parliament, new president. A lot of things had changed, but also we have an opposition led by some oligarchs that are under criminal investigation, some of them convicted already, all of them fugitive. And you are considered in this country as an expert because you were the last ambassador to meet an oligarch who left the country. So everybody wants to know how it happened at that time, but also how do you think we should bring to responsibility those oligarchs?
Well, you know, the United States will continue to support the Moldovan government and people's choice for clean government, right? And so that's why we designated a number of individuals, actors, oligarchs, some of whom you mentioned, based on the evidence that we had. And we're prepared to take similar action. Again, this is just simply to use the tools that we have at our disposal to support the Moldovan government's efforts to strengthen rule of law. And so the steps that have been taken, for example, the vetting of judges, is something right now had the opportunity to speak with the government, with senior government officials about, and not only just on my trip here, but even while in Washington and in phone conversations with them, as well as their meetings in Washington. And I can tell you that it is worth the effort. It is worth the effort to take all of the judges, the entire judicial system, and run them through a process where, objectively speaking, they meet the professionalism as well as the ethical standards. It takes some time. There are obviously people within the system who are resistant, or who are not going to want to.
Perhaps you should meet them.
Because it's not so much, it really comes down to, first of all, these people's individual choices. I mean, they have an opportunity right now to choose professionalism, to choose ethical way of doing their work. And honestly, I think the trend lines are showing that if you resist that change, sooner or later, you will be asked to leave, or worse, in terms of facing consequences. Because what we're talking about right now is there is a global struggle going on right now between democracies and authoritarian governments and regimes. And so Moldova has chosen the democratic path. And so what that means is there are those who would like to hold on to the way things used to be, but the movement is going against them. And so we have, in close cooperation with the EU, provided as much support as we can to ensure that there's transparency. That's really what it comes down to, transparency. And we hope that those judges, those individuals, part of the system will understand they have an opportunity to build a Moldova that is good, not only for them, but for their children and their children's children.
If you would have the opportunity to meet those oligarchs again, Mr. Plahotniuc and others, what would be your message?
Well, thankfully, there is no need for me to do so, because they have fled the country, and all around the world, trying to conduct business here, but from abroad. I would say that right now is an opportunity for them to see that Moldova is not moving from this path. The determination of the people and this government right now to embrace freedom, to embrace prosperity for all, not just for a select few of people based on who you know, but for all, is something that is unwavering. And I've never seen it more clear than I do now. And so the EU, the United States, other countries around the world are going to do what we can to help Moldova stay on this path. And sooner or later, the actions that they've taken to undermine and try to deviate will catch up with them. The tools that we have at our disposal, the tools that are being developed here in Moldova are sharpening, they're developing, and so time is not on their side.
You've been here 2 years ago, and you come back. If you had seen any changes?
The commitment to reform, I've never seen it more than I do right now. These steps are, of course, required, important for entry into the European Union. But the Moldovan people and Moldovan government are taking these decisions, making these bold steps for their own good, right? For their own sake, because that's the sort of society in which they want to live. So I see that. I also see much deeper relationships with Europe, as well as, of course, with the United States. I see our assistance multiplied 10 times.
Was there anything you were missing from Moldova? What will you miss?
Well, the food, the food.
Which one? You may say in Romanian.
No, Mama Liga. Sigur. I mean, everything about just life here. It was a great place for my family. It was a great place to raise our daughter. I have to tell you, just the beauty of the country, just traveling all around. It was just a place where no matter where I was, I felt welcome. And not just me, but, you know, the American people.